The UK has been home to many flat rides in the history of its many parks. From 1904's Flying Machines to 2026's Evictus, Blackpool Pleasure Beach in particular has seen many rides come and go. Often, these end up at other parks around the world, but only one has seemingly vanished off the face of the earth. After spending some time in mainland Europe, the ride was due to return to England, but was never built at its third home. What happened to this ride? Where did it go? What is the story behind Blackpool's lost flat ride? Let's take a look at the history and the future of Bling, Skyjet, and later, the unbuilt Turbulence. Turbulence's story begins around the turn of the millennium, when the German company Sierra unveiled a new travelling flat ride. Sierra as a company was more so known for their family coasters, most notably their Tivoli models. The ride itself was the brainchild of who would become the ride's owner, Jasmine Kaiser. Their idea was simple: what if you took the seating arrangement of the popular Mondale Topscan and put it on an inverting arm? The result was the very first star shape, which was given the name of High Energy. Debuting in 2003, High Energy proved to be one of Sierra's more mesmerising creations. Looking past the bright colour scheme, the ride experience itself was quite intricate. Riders sat in 6 rows of 5 in a star formation, extending away from the main arm of the ride. These included the separate rows being able to flip the riders, along with all 5 rows spinning around the main arm. Finally, the arm itself would rotate multiple times, before a brief pause which was then followed by the arm rotating the opposite way. After the arm had rotated each way 5 times, the ride would come to a stop, ending the approximately 3.5 minute experience. The ride had a max height of 95 feet, however, this wasn't reached during the break halfway through the ride. This was actually reached during a full rotation due to the design of the seating arrangement, a design almost identical to that of the Mondale Topscan. The ride itself was quite popular and was praised for being an intense but fun ride. As mentioned previously, this ride debuted on the German fair circuit, but it wouldn't be long before the first park model was sold. This time, the star shape headed for Blackpool. 2004 wasn't the best year for Blackpool Pleasure Beach. Viking Art and Millennium Bug had closed the year before. The park's latest thrill ride, Spin Doctor, was a mechanical nightmare, and Big Apple shut down after only 2 seasons of operation. This was bad enough without the unfortunate events of the Grand National Fire, an event causing significant damage to the almost 70-year-old coaster. There was also the tragic death of Jeffrey Thompson, the park's owner. Amidst the not so great year, it's easy to forget that the park opened one of its largest flat rides. Joining the likes of Ice Blast and Spin Doctor was the next star shape, the final edition overseen by Jeffrey Thompson. This was Bling. Sitting in the south half of the Pleasure Beach, Bling sat just south of the lift hill for the Pepsi Max Big One, on land that was previously home to Takeda Express, the park's former powered coaster. Upon opening, Bling donned a red and yellow colour scheme somewhat similar to that of High Energy. Along with this, the ride retained the same lights as High Energy on the main arm and on the back of the seats. In terms of theming itself, the ride was quite lacking. It featured theming pieces that depicted melting clocks, and one of these was even placed on the ride itself. The strangest aspect, however, was the decal of an eye on the ride's counterweight. Despite the lack of theming, the ride itself was no less mesmerising, especially when operating at night. When Bling opened, the ride featured a smoke machine as well as strobe lighting. All of these added together certainly made Bling stand out from the other thrill rides at the park, even the ride that acted as its backdrop. Despite the issues of 2004, Bling was actually pretty popular. This may have been due to its placement right next to the entrance to the big one. However, the ride itself gained numerous fans who praised its long cycle compared to Ice Blast, and its intensity compared to Flying Machines. By 2007, Spin Doctor was removed and instead Infusion opened on the site of Drench Falls, a new coaster that essentially acted as a replacement for Spin Doctor. This introduction, decided by the park's current owner Amanda Thompson, was the beginning of the park improving its overall aesthetics. This would continue with the addition of a new fountain outside Wild Mouse, the removal of the Super Bowl building, and the opening of a new Dodgems, but most importantly, the opening of Nickelodeon Land. All these changes were indicative of Amanda's view for the park, and it soon became evident that Bling didn't fit into this view. Since opening, Bling looked very temporary. The former footprint of Tokaido Express was hardly changed to fit Bling, with it remaining a large red slab with Bling itself sitting on top. Furthermore, Bling's queue was just a metal ramp up to the ride with no real permanent or themed queue line. The ride itself didn't even have its own logo anymore, just the same simple design on the ride's height board as the rest of the park's other rides. The original height board which had the ride's logo was changed around the time Infusion opened. By the opening of Nickelodeon Land in 2011, park officials were turning their heads to Bling. With its temporary looks and lack of theme, something had to be done with the ride. The park ultimately decided to sell up. By the end of the year, the ride was sold, and during the 2011/2012 off-season, Bling was removed from the park. It wouldn't be long before Bling was seen again. Skyline Park in Germany opened a new ride in April 2012. It seems Bling had returned to its home country, this time under a new appearance and a new name. Bling had now been transformed into Skyjet. During this relocation, nothing to do with the ride system was modified, meaning the ride ran the same cycle as it did in Blackpool. All the changes to the ride were purely aesthetic. This included removing all of the melted clock pieces, removing the lights on the main arm, and repainting the ride. The red and yellow gradients were painted over to look like rusting panels of metal. The star-shaped seats were repainted orange, and strangely, the eye on the counterweight was painted over to depict a globe. While looking no less striking, the ride did lose part of its weirdness, which was a part of its draw in Blackpool, making the ride more utilitarian and less unique. The ride continued to operate at Skyline Park until 2019 when, in the off-season, the park announced Skyjet was being removed. Information is sparse on the reason for the closure, but there are a few possibilities. The first being the ride's location in the park. Most of the rides at Skyline Park are spread out, meaning the larger rides are further away from each other. The two rides close to Skyjet were family rides, and the closest coaster, Skywheel, certainly pulled more riders than Skyjet did with its unusual layout. The other reason for Skyjet's closure could be maintenance. While not being widely publicised, it is possible that the ride had more downtime than expected after operating for over 15 years. It's also important to remember that this was one of the first two star shapes, with it being the first ever park model. It's not out of the realm of possibility that Skyjet had more issues than the later star shapes. By the end of the year, Skyjet was out of Germany, and just like before, it was unknown what would happen to it. This was until January 2020 when it was announced where Skyjet was going, and surprisingly, it headed back to the UK. On the 16th of January, Fantasy Island near Skegness announced their new ride to celebrate the park's 25th anniversary. Joining Odyssey and Millennium was the park's newest extreme ride, Turbulence. Along with the description of flipping and twists, the park also shared photos of the ride in its German home, confirming Turbulence was in fact Skyjet. This in particular made Blackpool fans happy, as old fans could experience Bling again, while new fans could ride a ride they missed out on which had become sorely missed in the years since its removal. The opening day was announced as March 28th, and everything seemed to be going as planned, until it wasn't. Unfortunately for everyone in the world, the COVID-19 pandemic ran rampant in February 2020, forcing the UK into a nationwide lockdown. This impacted many people as well as businesses, with the amusement industry being greatly affected. Many parks didn't open until July, with many projects pushed back. One famous instance of this was Sick at Flamingoland, which was originally supposed to open in 2020, but was pushed back to 2022. Another consequence for Fantasy Island in particular was the delay of Turbulence. In fact, the ride itself never arrived at the park. Unfortunately, this is essentially where the trail ends. Since the pandemic, there's been no activity regarding Turbulence. Naturally, there have been rumours of Turbulence opening every year since, but the ride itself still hasn't arrived at the Lincolnshire Park. It's almost like Turbulence itself has just vanished, but that can't be the end of the story. The park made the announcement the ride was coming, so something must have happened to it that caused them to change their minds. This is where speculation comes into the picture. The ride itself certainly ended up in the hands of the Mellors Group, the owners of Fantasy Island. This means at some point, the ride had to be at one of their properties. Personally, I heard at some point the ride was left in pieces in a car park. I don't think they would buy the ride, announce it opening, and then just leave it in a car park unless something went wrong with the ride itself. There's a high chance that during relocation, a major mechanical fault was discovered which had proved to be quite difficult to fix. This could have led to the park quietly cancelling their plans to open Turbulence until the Mellors Group decided what to do with it. There is some merit to this theory, as in February 2020, the park announced that there would be a delay to Turbulence's opening due to unforeseen circumstances, although this was allegedly only a delay until further into the 2020 season. At this point, they have three options: send the ride to Sierra to get it fixed, get a third-party company to fix it, or just scrap the ride entirely. Unfortunately, I fear with how long it's been since the ride was first announced, it seems to me that whatever is left of the ride will now head to the scrapyard. It would be a sad end to one of the most mesmerising rides the UK has ever seen. Despite the bleak outcome of Turbulence, you can still experience other star shapes. For Blackpool fans, a travelling version tours around the UK, owned by Danter Attractions and goes by the name of Air. In terms of other park model star shapes, one operates at a park in France and another in Indonesia, with the most well-known permanent model being Mechanica at Leesburg, which has been operating since 2015. There is also Star Voyager, a model with a smaller capacity which sits SB&O at the now closed Marineland in Canada. Finally, we have High Energy, the original star shape. Touring with Jasmine Kaiser until 2019, the ride spent around 4 years in storage until it was sold to FAF in 2023, who brought the ride back to the German fair circuit the very next year. As for what replaced Bling and Skyjet, Bling was eventually replaced by Red Arrow's Skyforce in 2015. Specifically, Skyforce's queue sat where Bling once stood, with the ride itself occupying land just west of the former star shape. In 2018, Skyforce's queue was shortened slightly to accommodate the park's newest coaster, Icon. Unfortunately, Skyforce was closed for the 2025 season and it's unknown whether it will reopen. As for Skyjet, the ride itself was never replaced with another thrill machine. Instead, it seems the land has been used for small paper play games since at least 2023. The last thing worth mentioning is the actual location of Turbulence. The short answer is, I don't know. The ride's location isn't known to the public, so the only people who know for certain are the Mellors Group themselves. The most likely scenario is that it's sitting in storage somewhere away from Fantasy Island. Whether it's waiting to be fixed or scrapped is unknown, but it seems likely that the next place it's moved to is where it will be broken down for scrap. The story of Turbulence is unfortunate, beginning as one of the tallest rides at the Pleasure Beach, to its second life in Germany, to then vanishing before its return to the UK. It seems like a large fall from grace, and nowadays people think of it more as the Fantasy Island ride that never was. It is food for thought, however. If one thing was different, maybe it would still be open. Maybe the Pleasure Beach could have held off closing the ride until Icon arrived, and then they could have just moved the ride to accommodate Icon. Maybe Skyline Park could have kept the ride around, or never have bought it at all. Maybe instead of Mellors buying Skyjet, it was sold back to Sierra, who was then able to sell it to another park. The possibilities are endless, however, we can't change history. Now, it looks like Turbulence isn't coming back, but at least we had it for as long as we did. It made memories and created joy, exactly what it was supposed to do. Turbulence may still be missing, but what we can say for certain is this: Blackpool, Skyline Park, Sierra, mission accomplished.